Hello, David.
Hey, Steven. And hey to Joshua. Somebody from Eventbrite, I think.
Yeah, oddly enough, I saw Will joining up with this one.
From Meetup, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
We'll see. Um,
Will's you familiar with Will at all?
no, you mean it's somebody you've.
Yeah. Somebody is very much on the existentialist Aussie from Brisbane. He,
Oh, yeah, he was here last week. That's right. Will from last week. Yeah, right, right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
uh, blue collar worker origin, which makes a change from all these what they call in America the college grad type. Oh, I didn't quite finish it actually. I didn't finish reading the stuff at the end, which was sort of explaining everything. Well, what can I say? I like the illustrations. Story sucked.
Okay, well,
It's a story for yuppies. Yuppies from Fableland.
I didn't think much of it either. But
There's obviously too many yuppies living in their own bubble these days. They're the types that think, somehow milk and eggs magically form out of thin air or something like that. Okay, it's like, this is sort of very, very pleasing sort of illustrations. They're very traditional, a step above. Okay, and I start off with Beauty and the Beast having a session with Snow White. So all rather reminiscent of, those early 19th century women's books, sort of like Jane Austen, which was all about the middle class and how much money everybody has. So there was the more wealthy middle class and there was the poor middle class.
hmm.
I suppose giving its credit, well, Watchman doesn't jive so much with the middle class vibe. It has a broader appreciation of things.
Hmm.
I mean, this is just a yuppie fantasy.
Well, okay. So, well, you said you said you wanted comics from a conservative
Oh, right. You reckon this is
creator.
conservative?
Bill
Okay.
Willingham is a Republican voter, right wing conservative, without question. And this is his most famous work.
Oh, really? He's best. Okay.
So, and to some degree, you can see it in his work. But you said you wanted something that comes from the conservative side of things. So here we
Oh,
go.
right. No, that's right. And you said you were struggling to find anything.
That's right. Well, the thing that comes to mind is okay, so here you go. Um, Not altogether sure what it is you're looking for. The creator himself is a right-wing conservative Republican voter, and that comes through his work a bit. But I think you can see that doesn't really count for a lot in terms of what the actual work itself. I'm not really sure what it is you're looking for.
Oh, okay, okay. Oh, yeah.
You see, comics coming from a conservative creator aren't going to be really that different from comics coming from anybody else. It doesn't seem to me. I mean, they'll be good or bad on their own merits, but the creator being conservative doesn't really seem to enter into it.
Oh, well, it's worth, I don't think I'll follow the series
And
anyway.
it's been pointed out that the thing about the whole thing about the Fable land coming into or being attacked, that there is kind of a Israel Palestine analogy going on there.
Yeah, I would have more looked at it as being the rise of Soviet Russia. You know, the vast armies of dedicated Bolsheviks driving out the aristocracy.
Better minds than mine have tried to work out what's going on with this series. It's pretty long. I think it went on for like 15 years, believe it or not. His most famous work. Yeah, but other than that, Willingham being a conservative didn't really change the fundamental nature of the comic itself. Doesn't seem to me.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see how they think it has something to do with the Israel-Palestine thing. Yeah, I couldn't figure that myself.
Neither,
Like
me neither.
very well, you know, you had say the Russian expatriates, you know, fleeing to the West, and this looks exactly like that. You know, some of the nobility have managed to escape with their money. A lot of them haven't. And of course, the Bolsheviks are viewed as inhuman, orc-like creatures with a Sauron-like figure running them.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny premise. Fairy tale land characters coming into modern world and how they get along with it. An entire race and species being a fish out of water into a new land. Interesting premise, I guess. Yeah, but I'll say this. Yeah, I wasn't no Watchman. Wasn't no Sandman.
Okay, so Rose Reed fakes her own death.
It was pretty popular though. It got a lot of fans.
Well, I can if they appreciate the artwork, I suppose that wouldn't be surprising. So this is fairly pleasing artwork. I guess it depends what a comic book guy is looking for. I'd probably go more for story than the look. Yeah, that's what it looks like to me. It's the fun and games of Russian expatriates in some place like New York after the Soviets have taken over their homeland.
Hmm.
Fables comic. Oh well, should look that up a bit more. Okay, so it ran from 2002 to 2024. Well, that might mean that it's still current, is it?
Sure. I mean, yeah, I don't. I'm. All I know is that this exists, and these 5 issues are all I've ever read of it. I've never really been interested in paying attention to it. So,
Actually, now you pointed out, well, I know a number of conservative personalities, and a lot of them are at that level. They what you're seeing in this comic book is the level they live at.
hmm,
And the most important thing is getting some money. It's not all conservatives, but there's
hmm,
certainly
hmm.
a big chunk of them. For example, they'll be very big on Ayn Rand, or there you are, Russian expatriate.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
Maybe there's an Ayn Rand lookalike in Fableland somewhere. But the thing is, it's like with the Ayn Rand people, uh, how would you say they're rigid idealists. Rather than just seeing sort of some general principle in Ayn Rand stuff, they treat it as a religion. It's like the Jews with the Talmud or something. Okay, Legends in Exile, issues 1 to 5. Okay, the introduction to Fabletown. Animal Farm, issues 6 to 10. A revolt occurs on the farm. All right, that was where the pig was going. It's a place for those fable creatures that can't mix it with normal society. A tale set during the American Civil War, in which Jack Horner finds a way to cheat death. I've been listening to Sophie's World on YouTube. I assume you're familiar with that one, are you?
No.
All right. It's uh, it's a book about a sort of school-age girl, and she meets a philosopher, and he starts teaching her, about all the mainstream sort of philosophies from the time of the ancient Greeks up until modern times. And you gradually discover that the girl and the philosopher are inhabitants of a man's head. He's dreaming up these characters in his head, and he has a daughter which resembles the girl in the story. And of course, there's all sorts of odd events that go on, like they start uh, meeting characters out of Fables. Little Red Riding Hood and all that will show up. Donald Duck and his nephews will show up more and more towards the end as the philosopher's saying, yeah, the guy that fought him up is a bit mentally unstable, and so they're seeing lots of crazy stuff, and he's trying to keep him under control. But yeah, it does. It sort of explains the history of philosophy in a very entertaining way.
Oh,
I was only pointed out to me at one of the meetings I run by a couple of women. They said they'd both read it and they quite enjoyed it, and I'll give it. It's okay sort of bit of work.
mhm.
You can check that out, Sophie's World.
All right.
Oh well, it's getting
Oh,
warmer here. I assume it's the weather's getting cooler where you are.
the Rick Marshall meeting pushed 24 hours. Just wanted to let you know about that.
All right, yeah. So it's going to Wednesday.
Yeah.
Oh, for me, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's on the calendar, but you'll notice. You'll notice. I sent out a group email, but I figured I'd tell you in person.
Okay, another Lovecraft.
We got a lot to go through. A lot of Lovecraft to the coming. We'll be at this for a few years.
Well, at least I can avoid being at those meetings where somebody brings up Lovecraft and feeling embarrassed in the future.
Yeah, some of them are pretty good. Some of these Lovecraft adaptations.
You didn't quite catch up with everything at the end. So the wolf had known Snow White and Rose Red from the Soviet Union or the Russian
Yeah,
the Tsardom as it fell.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just knew it was around. It just never seemed particularly compelling or interesting to me. And now that I've read this first book, although I've been told it does, well, I guess get better after it goes on for a while. Okay.
I was trying to think there was a TV series which took up this theme, didn't it? A place called Storybook or something like that, where there's a town where it was full of all the characters were from certain stories, grim sort of stuff and that.
I I I think there are a number of TV shows that have had premises reminiscent. Um, there's Once Upon a Time.
That was a TV show, was it?
Yeah, yeah. And there's I think there was a show called Grimm.
Oh, yeah, right. Once Upon a Time was the one I watched. I didn't watch much of Grimm. First episode was 2011. Yeah, I remember my mother liked watching it. The town was called Storybook, I think. Probably watched a bit of the first season or something like that, and it was okay as a TV show. But I think I was decided I didn't have enough time for TV shows unless it was something I really liked. Storybook, okay, Maine.
Yeah, I've been told so. Yeah, Fables does become different, but I just not enough interesting here for me to want to pursue it, to keep going with it, to find out. If we did go forward with it, yeah, it would be quite a while.
Beyond the farther shores of Never, the adversary lived in a remote kingdom ignored by other powers as his strength and ambition grew over the long centuries. Some say he was a mere woodland sprite, while others claim he was once a god, thrown down from the vast heavens when his corruptions had become too great for his lofty brethren to tolerate. Oh, we got a pan-like creature. Okay, this is evil Pan. Oh, I might go for this if I was about 12 years old, 14, something like that. Hi, Pinocchio. I haven't seen you in a while. Enjoying the party? No, I am most certainly not having a good time. I never have a good time at this ridiculous celebration. Then why do you come each year? Because sooner or later, that blue fairy who turned me into a real boy is going to show her face at one of these things, and I'm going to kick her pretty azure ass. Why? I thought you wanted to become a real boy. Of course I did. But who knew I'd have to stay a boy forever? The ditzy bitch interpreted my wish too literally.
Yeah,
I'm over 3 centuries old and I still haven't gone through puberty. I want to grow up. I want my balls to drop and I want to get laid.
yeah, highbrow.
Uh, Definitely the pig added a bit to it. Without the pig, it would have been dollar. Pig is sort of like comedy relief.
Yeah, yeah, wait, yeah. It's like we were talking about back when we did Beautiful Darkness. It's just a funny premise. It's like Mad Magazine or a Saturday Night Live sketch. What would it be like if the fairy tales became real and turned into modern day world?
Oh, Beautiful Darkness still remains one of my favourites. Oddly enough, which
Yeah,
I found it
Des-
quite captivating.
deservedly. It's worth it. Worth your regard, I mean. Yeah, it deserves it. Yeah, it's just that funny idea. What would you, if this happened, what would it really be like?
I think, well, it succeeded in the storytelling. I thought, a very powerful piece of storytelling, Beautiful Darkness. Wasn't just the illustrations alone.
Sure, sure.
Okay. Mr. Wolf lights his smokes with matches, pocketbook matches, which used to be very popular. They used to
Big
give them away as an advertisement.
Big B wolf. Big B wolf. Yeah. Clever. And believe the phrase is try one's patience. No, we're not dealing with great literature here. And from what I can tell, yeah, Willingham just is not nowhere near like at the level of Alan Moore or Neil Gaiman or
Yeah, so something I was trying to warn Natalia about that, she's young, and when you're young, you tend to look at the world in grandiose terms, and then you start discovering that really, for the most part, humanity's pretty ordinary.
hmm. All right.
It's got a habit of trying to make friends with idiots. Which probably explains my case, but
Hmm.
it's easy to make friends with idiots because they usually don't have many friends. And they certainly, they don't even have a few friends that they've known for a long time.
Well, okay.
I'm a bit curious about the issue number 6. You
We
couldn't bring that up, could you? Animal Farm sounds interesting.
it doesn't have a lot to do with Orwell. It's just a title.
It's just the revolts on the farm.
Well, now that you mention it, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, now, well, I guess you're probably right. For that matter, it's an allusion to the original. Yeah, okay. All right, let's see what we can do here. All right.
Well, you got like in Watchmen, you've got a main character like Roche, which he's the sort of dude that just wouldn't make anybody socialist, but he's a main character. That's quite interesting, actually. I don't know if the latest stuff I've seen by more really matches the earlier work.
Hmm.
Trying to think
Hmm.
where I end up. I ended up it was a bit where Roche was getting knocked down by the cops. Yeah, and they were taking his mask off. So I was wondering, do you think you can find issue number 6? So,
I got 1 minute left on the download,
alrighty, yeah, okay.
and then I'll have to, well, I guess we'll see.
I assume the farmers for those Russians that couldn't fit in with a New York society, of which there would have been plenty. Also, it's you get some people going to places like Russia and Transnistria and what's the other one? Morava, I think, to experience that early 1950s atmosphere that they so miss in the West, where the largest shop is just a traditional grocery store, when before the supermarkets came along. Supposed to be okay if you could speak Russian.
There you
Oh, this will be curious. Yeah, Natalia failed one of her units.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so I think she's got the maths and English units. She's done a placement unit, but there's the one which deals with all the politically correct stuff and diversity training and
Hmm.
associated rubbish. And she just felt she didn't have enough time to do all of them. And so she told me a few weeks ago that she was just going to ignore the diversity unit. And well, and that for all likelihood, she might fail it, and which is what's happened. So she's going to have to repeat it next year if she can. Okay, they still haven't gotten the pig back to the farm yet. Yeah, I think the pig definitely adds. The adventures of the pig is what makes this a bit more interesting. Okay, the animals are all in the barn. It's page 11. There's a nice little shot there.
Yeah.
Got the cat Puss in Boots. Couldn't
Yeah.
make it in the normal world.
Well, I think you can kind of remember one thing that we've been through that this kind of would remind you of. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Oh, okay. Okay, rightio.
It's not a million miles away from that.
As long as you insist on the laws keeping our true natures hidden from the Mondays, we can't set one foot outside of this prison camp for fear a talking pig or a real living giant would let the cat out of the bag, so to speak. Shadow cat, instead of that is at the end. As some of the conservative personalities I know, sort of Ayn Rand supporters were watching that doco, 2000 Mules, sort of like a public screening. You ever heard of it?
No.
That's the idea that, well, there was evidence that the 2000 election was stolen. And certainly, I think just about every election is going to have a little bit of something going on somewhere. The Michael Moore, of course, famously was screaming his book about stupid old white men or something, I think it was, that the 2000 election was stolen by the Bushes. So stolen elections are nothing new. But yeah, it probably brought up maybe there was a case there, but I was trying to explain to him that it's a bit limited. You know, you'd have to show me some very big documentary which would point out how some nefarious activity here and there really did swing the election. Which maybe it did, I don't know. It's fortunately I've got more interesting concerns in exploring the 2020 election in detail. But you know, your General Trumpist is convinced the election was stolen. And Trump very foolishly just got overactive. Maybe it's obviously a person operating under a lot of pressure, but even if the election was being stolen, there's nothing much he can do about it unless the Electoral College believes that's the case. So instead of sort of, you know, stepping back and thinking, well, I'll live to fight another day, he does the opposite, which was the first time I really thought there was a weakness in Trump. It's Genghis Khan's big lesson. You're going to lose a few battles. Just make sure you run away in good order and come back and win another day. Shadow Cat, is that a comic? No, I don't. It's got an octopus symbol there. That's something. Shadow Cat. Okay, Kitty Pryde. Comic book character. Okay, what is it? Is it all right? Ah, X-Men.
Don't think Fables would have been something I would have chosen just on its own merits to cover in this group, but you wanted something by a conservative.
Well, it's an investigation. This is a thing you can only, when you go to explore new land, sometimes you miss out. Sometimes you can only know by going there. Like I said, the illustration work, I really liked. Great stuff. Excellent.
I met
Large,
Steve Lee Aloha once or twice.
sorry, that's the artist.
Steve Lee Aloha. I met him once or twice. Once in an elevator.
So I noticed you posted that little bit about Harlan Ellison. So how did you get called snotty by him?
I had a video cassette recording of him appearing on a talk show, and he gave out a reading on that appearance. So I transferred it and uploaded it to YouTube, including the reading. And that people on his message board took notice of it. And then he, in his message, requested that the segment of him doing the reading of the story be cut out, be excised from the YouTube recording, which is a bit of a difficulty. You, for a variety of reasons. You know, you have to do actual video editing to do a cut like that. And, you know, I'm not 100% sure he knew or understood that or understood what it would require to do such a thing. Anyway, I just said it would be a bother. It would be a hassle. And I said no.
That's
I said no.
something Natalia can do that sort of stuff.
I said no. I'm not going to do that. And that's really all I said. I said no, I'm not going to do it. And he responded with yeah, calling me snotty in my response.
Okay. Well, now your segment was basically covered by criticism, wasn't it? You know that you are free to use material as you know as long as it's pursuant to sort of a criticism, which apparently he doesn't like criticism. That, you know, if you become a public figure, this is
Well, it
one of
was
the things that goes with it.
well, it was that he read the story on the appearance on the talk show. And so that would, you know, the story is of course copyrighted. So his reading of the story, I guess that was his idea that it was copyright protected. And he didn't want it out there. I would say, well, he read it himself on the appearance. I mean, if that was going to be a concern, he should have thought of that before he read it. But anyway, after that exchange, I went ahead and bothered myself to actually do what he requested. I cut it out. And then many years later, I uploaded the full thing, including the reading. And then when he started his own YouTube channel, he himself linked to that recording with the reading included. So that leads me to think, what the heck? You know what I mean? Didn't seem to bother him a little bit later on. I mean, him reading the story was effectively promotion. He was promoting his book. Anyway, that was what it was about.
Sounds a bit childish, actually. So, you know, somebody getting the fixation that something is bothering them when you really got to step back and say, well, is it really a bother? Because you can't be bothered by everything. You have to, you know, so to speak, to ferret out the stuff which is of real concern rather than just anything.
Are you aware of Dangerous Visions?
No.
Well, Dangerous Visions was an anthology Ellison edited, and it came out. I think I don't. Yeah, I think it came out 69. Yeah, you can Wikipedia it. Anyway, volume one came out. I think 69. I think volume two came out 71, and there was a planned volume three,
Okay.
which he promised within 2 years, and then it just never appeared. Anyway, and it caused a whole bunch of controversy because he just never bothered to put it out. It finally did come out after he passed. Somebody else put it together. But in the introduction to the volume 3, I think somebody said Ellison, was probably bipolar.
Well, it depends on one's development. He became a success story at an early age. And this can be dangerous because if you're too successful, well, you look at the world and you think it's my oyster, me want, me get. So he had some sort of particularly grandiose literate talent, and he perhaps didn't have quite a knowledge of his limits. Particularly as you get older, and if you're the sort of person which is pretty normal, you discover that you've got limits. Like, I think he was right, because my impression, he was pretty much living the high life by the late 50s or early 60s or something like that. Okay, he edited Rogue magazine, whatever that is. Well, where is Harlan Ellison, the comic book? Imagine somebody's done his biography in a comic book form by now.
You want to do some Ellison comics?
Well, yeah, may as well. Yeah, otherwise,
Seriously. Okay. Have you read much of his stories?
well, I am a little bit familiar with some of his stories. Yeah.
If you like, all right, sure. Here's all right, sure.
Well, particularly if there's lots of nice illustrations of women, I always sort of go for that sort of stuff. I'm trying to think, was it there, Pig, that gets his head chopped off at the end of the comic?
It was
because
I
he's
don't know.
been cornered by looks of things.
It's Colin, whichever one was named Colin.
Were you able to get a duplicate key to the Woodland business office? No, not yet. How many fables did you find who are sympathetic to our cause? Will one of them come through us, right? Come for us. Well, you see, Bigby kept me on a pretty short leash, so I wasn't actually able to do much. Okay. So the pig's name was Colin, right? Colin the pig. Okay, Colin the pig, right? Looking in the Fables wiki. Oh, right. So he's the one that gets his head chopped off. Colin's severed head somehow continues to communicate with Snow White and Rose Red in their dreams. Eventually, it is revealed that the mysterious figure is Hope, masquerading as Colin. Okay, that evening, right, soon after Snow White discovers his presence and arranges to personally bring him back to the farm, along with her sister Rose Red, Snow White drives Colin back and reunites him with his cousins. It is at this time that Snow White first learns about a secret conspiracy between the freed pigs and many other occupants of the farm. That evening, Colin is beheaded by Goldilocks' revolutionary forces for failing in his mission to recruit Fables in the city to their cause. His head is affixed to a fence post in the middle of the road as a warning to others. And literary reference, Colin's remains are buried in the woods. Well, the only really interesting character, and he goes and kills him. This is an author who was just self-destructive.
Wow.
He got rid of comedy relief. Never get rid of comedy relief.
others.
It's like the first Conan movie and the second Conan movie has comedy relief. They realised something was missing. It's like Mad Max 2. They were wise enough to have a comedy relief in it.
Hmm. Well, good art is supposed to hurt.
There's a group I go to which is based in Singapore, a philosophy group. Are you familiar with it at all?
Derek's group?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Derek. I remember
Uh,
Derek.
Joe Bullocks goes there. Will goes there.
Yeah, I remember Derek.
Anyway, I was just making this point that, well, I remembered in reading somewhere, it could have been a long time ago, that so I sort of take an interest, so well, we'll try and take an interest in the German philosophers after the famous period. You know, they say the famous period came to a close in about 1840. And there were German philosophers after that who are not that well known in the Western world, unlike the earlier ones. And well, certainly not as great as the earlier ones, but well, you'd have to include Steiner and Spengler there. They're sort of the last of that sort of league of German idealists. And I guess it was probably somewhere in one of Steiner's works, he was discussing a point one of the philosophers, these later philosophers, made, that the Darwinists are making a great mistake about the concept of survival. You know, we use the word survival in this day and age simply to mean the continuance of life. But they're pointing out that really for life to function, life seeks to increase. Is this starting to sound a bit familiar?
Wait, say that again. For life to function.
That life can not merely wish to maintain itself. To really function, to really survive, it has to aim at an increase in life, an expansion of life.
Like,
Well,
well,
for example, you know, you're a single life form, and expansion could be breeding greater numbers. So, but an increase in life could mean anything, an increase in your personal life. And I suppose the warning there that if you remain static, you're on the way out. That was just something I sort of recalled reading. I thought maybe Steiner seemed to be, I think it was him commenting on some other philosopher. And I just raised that issue. And this, for Derek's group, was like, what a weird idea. Makes no sense. I've been quite taken with the idea because I see life, this is my quote for life, that all life seeks to increase. Nations seek to increase their number and become greater, for example. It could manifest in any way. It could be an elder Marcos buying that additional pair of shoes is a function of this desire for expansion. To me, you know, the English settle America and quite rightfully claim it for civilized man against the native barbarian, and of course they expand, much to the detriment of the natives. And this is just what life does. And like, people are very critical of this in nations and this in life today, but you're fighting against a basic drive. Now, of course, I sort of got a very bit of a critical feedback, which for, Derek's group was sort of some weird idea, particularly from Joseph Bullock. He's going, I just can't understand that concept. It's beyond me. What a weirdo idea. And then he quoted me as saying, became critical, and he said, well, you were critical of consumerism. I noted it at another meeting. And I said, well, yeah, that might be the case. But as I was trying to point out, that the desire to expand in life can come via many forms. It's not just necessarily via ordinary consumerism. And of course, I'm merely a living entity. I can contradict myself. I can say I'm against expansion while seeking to expand. That's actually something I note. You get all these characters who think, well, they're claiming that we should all fit into a place in the world, but secretly underneath, we might want to expand beyond that place. Like, they seem to rule out the subconscious, or consciously, I claim to be a certain sort of person. But what's going on in my subconscious? Consciously, I only want to meet this girl and go out for the most noble of purposes of friendship. But what's actually going on in the subconscious?
Put in
And
that link.
anyway, so
Download that new one. I just put
okay.
through. Download that.
Okay, let's see if it's coming down. No, not history. What am I doing? Downloads. Okay, download anyway. Love, Death and Robots.
Watch that and tell me what you think.
Well, I sort of take it from Nietzsche's point of view that life seeks to break out. Life isn't going to always play by the rules. If life, it's just something that comes out in Nietzsche, you see it, that if there's a rule saying don't, and life sees that the only way it can expand is to break that rule, life's going to break that rule, if that's the way it can do it. And that seems to be almost anathema to a lot of people, that they look at the world, and this, I accuse them of this, of looking at the world in very static terms, that it doesn't matter what I think. I might have, I might think this, that, or the other thing, but I'm merely an extension of the life force, and I really me, Stephen Higson, with certain inclinations and blah, 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 and all this. And I'm starting to wonder if it's a bit of foolery that I think I'm a particular individual. I mean, okay, I'm a male human. Was that my idea? Certainly, it was probably a creative process, whether it was God or nature, that was beyond me. There might be a narrative in all that, which is somewhat human created, yeah. And that narrative can be beyond me, like, all right, I'm a person of Anglo-Saxon culture. Did I create Anglo-Saxon culture? Is that really who I am? Well, it's an attribute, but it's might not be really what I am. I'm sort of going a bit Gnostic here and thinking, well, maybe there's something like a divine spark, or maybe not. And I noticed with all the college boys that they just don't take this too well. And I have noticed that people are starting to point out that this huge divide in politics is between, to some degree, between the blue collar and the white collar. Oh, okay. It's right. Needs a media play. Okay.
Like to know what you think.
All right. It's not that particularly long. Okay. Sort of a Wagnerian epileptic sort of world. Looks like the stuff Metalia would like. Okay, sort of jump through it a bit. Yeah, it looks like, oh, it's got a few Asian symbols at the back, so it's a anime production of some type, is it? Right, where we download that? Okay, copy. Open with, right, copy. There we are. Send it to Natalia, she might like it. Ah, right, too big for Facebook, I see. I have to do it via Google Docs, I suppose. Well, I'll do it later, I suppose. Anyway, back to the story. So I think Joe was trying to have a bit of a go at me. It's sort of like, you're this blue collar dude, you haven't been to college. And I was starting to ask me, well, where did I get this from? And I thought, my God, was trying to think, well, did I read it in Steiner's Philosophy of Freedom? Actually, later on, I started to think maybe I came across it in his book on Nietzsche, where I realised in the end, because I did a search with Copilot, yeah. So I asked the question, who said, you've got to remember this was a meeting about Nietzsche. So I asked the question, who said Darwin was wrong about survival? Who was the German thinker that said life seeks an increase in life? Well, I put an N there instead of an N, that's dumb. The German thinker you're referring to is Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche, yeah. Nietzsche critiqued Darwin's idea of survival of the fittest and proposed that life fundamentally seeks to increase and enhance itself. He introduced the concept of the will to power, suggesting that the primary driving force in humans is not survival or reproduction, but a more profound and intrinsic will to grow, dominate, and create. I can see that one going down well at the next meeting of the tertiary socialists. And so I just stuck that in the chat. And suddenly, DLJ, who was there, I don't know, you're probably familiar with DLJ by now. You might have come across him.
He was here last week, right?
Yeah. Well, he begged, he had to leave. And then Joe disappeared. In the end, I was just arguing with Derek. And Derek was going a bit over the top, claiming that he knew everything. He was, the world's great unrecognized philosopher.
Okay. I've known people like that.
Well, you have to give Derek some credit. There is some work there to back it up. He has done a lot of work. And he illustrates the point. But sometimes I get the feeling that he's doing an Oedipus. He's looking at something and not really seeing it, which we all do. And in recent times, I wondered what value theory is. Big on value theory, right? Axiology. And I thought, what the hell is this all about? And then over the vast period of time, it suddenly occurred to me that, well, it's really a department of rationalism. It's what rationalism does. It's very similar to idealism, that you're creating a set of ideas. And it's what we do. There's reality on one side, whether we can see reality that well, as Kant would say, we can't. And Schopenhauer said that to some degree we must receive some aspect of reality, even though we don't see the full picture. And then on the other side, we make a model of reality. We have a picture of reality, which is independent of reality. Ideas are really a map of reality, a description of reality. And what I tend to notice with a lot of rationalists, that they treat ideas as being more important than reality. Like, if reality does something which just doesn't fit with their picture, bad reality. And of course, Nietzsche would see the joke in this, or Nietzsche would see the fallacy in all this. Now, of course, we as strange creatures, along with a lot of other creatures, have developed the ability to create a map of reality. And it's gone on further to categories and ideas, and we can abstract a description into a prescription, which is how our civilization runs. We do it all the time. We've decided this is the way reality works. Here's my prescription on how to act, and 99% of the time it works, except for the 1% that it doesn't. And I mean, the rationalists just love this stuff. They want to find a perfect set of prescriptions for reality. And of course, the rationalists also have that idea that we have certain ideas are prior knowledge, which means we must have unfailing prescription somewhere. Now, I was pointing out Steiner's view of Nietzsche, and it's quite interesting. I found Steiner's book on Nietzsche generally a bit lame, but here and there he makes a few good points. And of course, whoever he stole the good ideas, I don't know, because this is a guy that worked in the Goethe archives. This was a guy that knew a lot of famous late 19th century German thinkers, which we don't know that well. And he must have been able to pick up a few good ones. And his point about Nietzsche was that Nietzsche started out pretty ordinary, as what most people would start out as an idealist, as a mystic of idealism, more or less. And you can see that in his love of Wagner and his love of the old myths. And of course, he becomes a bit drier with time and thinks, well, that's all nonsense. I'll be a rationalist. And I'll just be empirical in my thought. So far, so good. You know, Nietzsche's a happy little bud going along. He does have that tremendous talents of being a philologist, and I think a lot of where he gets his stuff from is he's reviewed texts, you know, going back into the past. And Nietzsche has a particularly outstanding talent to see stuff in text that other people miss. He's looking at the quality of writing. He's picking up the ideas which are prevalent at the time that the text was written and how worldviews have changed. I think he was just very, very sensitive to all that beyond the ordinary. Now, he came to physics. He started to explore scientific ideas. He had a very good mind, and understanding scientific concepts wasn't beyond him. And of course, being an intellectual of the age, he would like science a great deal. And of course, he discovers in science that contemporary science had a Kant's Laplacian view of the universe, or a Newtonian view modified by Laplace. And this was that we're living in a big world of matter with little atoms wandering around in space in an infinity of time, which are bouncing around together, knocking off each other and creating the world as we know it, which changes because the little atoms are all in movement. And of course, it's easy to work out that if this is the scientific truth, then what we perceive as reality will keep on repeating itself. We will literally, at some point, given an infinity of time, see our world created with Nietzsche living again in the 19th centuries, going through the same problems. Now, I've pointed out that this in part is what he meant by eternal return, and this will just get rejected out of hand. And see, the problem for Nietzsche is consciously he was a determinist. He didn't believe in free will. You ask him consciously, is there such a thing in free will as free will? And he'd say, well, no, science says a big no. This is just a cosmos of little atoms banging against each other. And if you had all the information, you'd be able to predict the future. Consciously, he accepted the idea, but subconsciously, it went completely against his instincts. Consciously, he accepted determinism. Subconsciously, he could not accept a closed system. It created a great sense of inner turmoil. And so what does he do? He does a 180 Nietzsche turn. Like we have this Socratic turn. So Nietzsche does a 180 and he becomes a dynamist.
I got it. Here, just a bit. I'll be right back. I'll be right back. Okay. Sorry about that. Didn't want to interrupt your rhythm, but couldn't help it.
Fine.
All right, I'm back.
Yeah, well, another thing Steiner claimed, I don't know how true, but he said Nietzsche was a man with little talent for physics and mathematics. Just wasn't his field. Uh, Idealism, mysticism, rationalism, empiricism, fine. But physics and maths, no. And because he couldn't absorb that one, he just broke away from ideas altogether. He did the 180 degree, and so he became a dynamist. And he's looking back at rationalism, which was the last of the popular ones that he was capable of, and he just was shooting at it. Uh, and so, of course, eventually went with the will to life, which is be the field of dynamism. Of course, he saw the problem that uh, for the sense of ego or expansion, people will, of course, blow themselves up. Although they might believe they're going to get 72 versions. I don't know how that works out exactly, but so he went beyond life, that the will to power. And of course, the will to power just doesn't sit in with Derek and his little gang all that well, because Derek's got another idea which he calls the will to values. And
Hmm.
I'll agree that people, because you just transform it and say, well, do people want power? Yeah, well, yes, the will to power. Do they want values? Yes, people might pursue values, so you can talk about the will to values or the will to rationales. But I don't think it's got much on the will to power, that people find power to be a drug. And you just look at, well, to the extent that people think power is the solution, uh, energy drinks, methamphetamines. Hey, the only thing that's going wrong for me is I haven't got enough power. Power is the answer. Coca-Cola, stimulants. Of course, you realise in the end that an excess of stimulants is not a good idea. Maybe you can use the coffee on the odd occasion, but if you drink too much coffee, it's got a lot of detrimental effects. So I'm drinking mainly decaf these days. But as of course in our society, it's been seduced by power. Now I've always thought about Nietzsche, and I don't know who I borrowed this concept from, that Nietzsche's holding up a mirror to his own society, which believed it still had Christian values, but he's saying, well, there's a lot of master morality going on in the 19th century. It's a window dressing of slave morality, but there's a lot of dudes out there practicing master morality that's increasingly unrestrained by the old slave morality of Christianity, which is falling away. And yeah, I think I'm getting struck now. Nietzsche, I need a small electric shock every time I say Nietzsche, don't I? Get a ring, special device. And well, it's interesting, of course, if you read Nietzsche and come across what did he say for him was a motivation which sticks out when he talks about people. It's a word that begins with E. Envy.
Empathy. Empathy.
No, not empathy. It was actually always a bit, he jumped on that one a bit, but you're saying that envy, he loved all the negative drives. Envy was one of the great drives that people had. Well, it's a Christian religion for you, and most of the old doctrines, pride. Now, we are living in a culture which thinks that pride is unsophisticated. Envy is unsophisticated. We know it's there, but we think, what kind of a motive is that? You know, surely you would, money would be a motive, you know, that sort of gain. Sensible motives. Now, would a person do something completely stupid out of envy? Oh, yeah, certainly. We see it all the time. Nietzsche's again, Nietzsche's picking up the mirror and pointing out, well, you guys all think you're too sophisticated for envy, but you're possessed by it. Something as lame and unsophisticated as envy is really your big number. Pride is your big number still. And you look at the world now, and its ego is dripping out all over the place. Ego is not a dirty word, which was the doctrine I believed in when I was about 25. You know, you used to meet all the little old ladies if you hung around at churches of various denominations, and they always say, well, the really bad thing's ego, and I'm starting to agree with them. You know, so many people think in terms that, you know, they're the great one just waiting for their moment. Well, it's like being on a planet full of superheroes with only one guy who thinks he's behind the times. You know, what was it? A normal man, yeah.
Hmm.
It's like Monty Python, you know, it's they all think they're destined for something better except the guy at the back.
Hmm.
And yeah, I'd probably say it's all right to have the negative qualities, but be honest about it. Don't shoot the messenger. If you're doing something wrong, uh, don't shoot the message that you're doing something wrong. You're simply doing something wrong, and you accept that. But a lot of people will try to justify bad actions rather than say, well, I just like doing it. I know it's bad, but I just like doing it.
Hmm.
I'm starting to think now. Yeah, I'm just looking at the state of the world is in a general sort of derangement. And I think, yeah, Nietzsche's pointing out that this was perhaps one of the positives in a religion like Christianity, that it kept people's egos in check. And what happens when you take away? Uh, when you spare the rod, you spoil the child. The egos are out and racing. Because I think, yeah, people held themselves just a little bit better, well, at least in Anglo-Saxon civilization, a little bit more in check 50 or so years ago compared to now. But we've been taught for years since Easy Riders that the ego is God. I'm out there to fill my inner wishes at all costs. Look at me, dude. great deal of pride going on in this culture which thinks it's too sophisticated for pride. Okay, Love, Death and Robots. Okay. So it's been 35 episodes, 3 seasons.
Watch the one I sent, and I want to know what you think.
Oh, okay. Which episode was that?
Well, watch it first before you read about it.
Okay. Oh, well, I'm just wondering how far in the series it was. So that's a particular episode you found interesting.
I want to know what you think.
Well, according to this, it's a future in which humanity's died out and been replaced by robots. So you have humanoid robots that are being, so this is sort of the replicant story, is that they're being given uh, human identities. I guess it's a reveal at the end of the episode that they're really just robots with human identities. I suppose it's talking about this pride thing with philosophers. I suppose that's the good thing about Rick, is he keeps his ego more in check compared to a lot of characters I've come across.
Hmm.
And I wonder why, if my persistent habit of stirring people, that there might be a method in the madness, is that perhaps it's part of me that wants to unmask the ego. You do a bit of a stir and you see, can people hold themselves, keep themselves together?
Yeah.
In certain sort of, well, historical situations, if you're on a ship going across the ocean, you had to watch the ego getting out of hand, or you're dead, possibly dead. If you're going through Alaska in the middle of winter with a sled full of Arctic supplies, you can't lose your temper and drive off the dogs and kick your sled of supply to pieces out of an ego moment.
Hmm.
But we were living in a place with ambulances. Go and jump out of third story, they might be able to put you back together, which seems to be a few people in the pop industry, the music industry, take a few too many of the wrong drugs and they decide and go and throw themselves off a balcony somewhere just for kicks. And we're supposed to have pity on such people. Nietzsche was a great doubter about the worthwhileness of pity. Very Christian, but I suppose that about wraps it up, David.
Hmm. I suppose.
I guess I'll see you next time then. Thanks a lot.
Okay, Steven. Thanks.